If there was an earthquake or a flood, what would you do first? How would you get your loved ones to a safe location? Where would you get food and shelter if you couldn't go home and grocery stores and restaurants were unavailable? Many of us are unprepared in the case of an emergency because we don't know what we need or where to start. In our partnership with the American Leadership Forum, Sacramento City Police Chief Sam Summers and Gary Strong, Regional CEO of the American Red Cross, join me next on Studio Sacramento.
At Five Star Bank, we create thoughtful solutions to help the Capital Region thrive, from economic development and education to public health and safety, issues that are vitally important to Sacramento's prosperity. We're proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.
Gary, what types of emergencies should all of us be prepared for?
Well, there's a range of emergencies, right? You get a lot of publicity for the big ones, the wildfires that we experienced back last year, earthquakes, those types of things. But what we really focus on at the Red Cross more than anything else are the little local emergencies that happen all of the time. If you look at home fires, that is big for us. There's about 1,000 home fires that happen every single day in the United States. So, that's one where we think that you're more likely to be involved in, and therefore you should be prepared for those.
And when we're talking about preparedness, are we talking about just having some information? Is it actually having, doing drills? What are we talking about, Chief?
Well, it's primarily information and getting informed. Is that you have to take time out of your day to actually do a couple of things. First of all is knowing, what kind of environment you live in. The fire thing is very real, and it crosses all communities. But you have different communities that have special needs. For instance, Sacramento is really known for flooding. So you have to have that awareness, and you should know exactly, what kind of neighborhood you live in. Is it a low-lying area where it might be prone to floods? Do you live by a levee and what have you? And then you should also look at your local government for what are they doing to provide information. For us in Sacramento, we have an opt-in service that you can get notification on, and we have information on our website, but we want people to get there. And sometimes that's very difficult for us to get everybody to take that little bit of time.
You say an opt-in service. What exactly is that?
Well, what it is a notification. So you basically go to our website, you go to the emergency section, and you click on that, and there's a link on there that's called Sacramento Alerts. When you click on that one, you put in your information, your email address, your phone number, and it provides us an opportunity if something occurs where you live, or if there's something citywide we need to provide information on, that we can contact you and give you that information. Because information is what it's all about. And some of the other preparation you have to do is to create a plan for your family. If something were to happen, how are we going to get a hold of each other? And then understanding, what that plan is, and everybody having that somewhere that they can refer to.
Right. Well, one thing, just coming back to this opt-in device, what do we do if we live in Elk Grove, Roseville, Stockton, El Dorado Hills? Do all police agencies have a similar type of service?
Well, and it's not necessarily just the police agency, it's the city itself, the government. So for our region, and when I look at our region, I'll look at our tri-counties for here, Sacramento County, Placer County, and El Dorado County. We're all connected to one service. And you can go to either one of their websites, or you can go to the City of Sacramento one, and you can click on that. And what that is that link to the information so that we can push that information out to you, and you know what's coming, you know where maybe some direction might be received at. If there's an area to stay away from, we can do that. Recently the city had something where they were trying to get information out on a water issue. And with that, that's the information that we pushed out. And one of the things we found from that was a lot of people had not opted in, and so they didn't get the information we were trying to supply them.
Gary, I got to ask you this question. what does the Red Cross actually do? I don't know if you ever get that question, but
I should get it a lot more than I do. Most people know the Red Cross by the one experience they've had with it, what they've seen on television, but there's a wide range of activities that the Red Cross does. A lot of it has to do with preparedness. You know, you start with, people know about CPR training, first aid training, those types of things where you can start to save a life even before the first responders actually get there. From there, you look at the disasters, and we work on getting people prepared for disasters. For example, in a home fire case, we install smoke alarms in people's homes so that they can increase their likelihood of surviving that. But once the disaster or event has happened, we're there to be on site within 2 hours to provide comfort for the victim of the event. We're there to give them money, give them shelter, give them food, whatever they need for the next couple of days to get them through that very trying situation.
that raises an interesting point. So for most of us, when we think of natural disasters, whether it's a natural disaster, it's a hurricane, a flood, a large wildfire, or I'll even go even a little bit further. You know, so some of the things that are on people's minds are terrorist threats and things like that. We've had, you know, thoughts or reports that folks like ISIS have been trying to get into the country and do things. What is it that we should be doing at home? Like, do we need to buy a particular toolkit? Should we become survivalists? What should we do?
Yes, so there are things that you can buy, and I'd really like folks to know about our website, redcross.org. We sell kits there that can take you from soup to nuts on everything that you would need in order to be prepared for a wide range of disasters. Now, there's also information on the site that helps you understand the pieces that you need so that you don't have to buy necessarily what we provide. People generally think that they're prepared if they have water. That's what they think. You need to have water. And that is key. You should have about 1 gallon of water per person per day. But you also need to have in your kit food. You need to have a flashlight with batteries. You don't know what's going to happen at
So
night.
how many days worth of water and food should we have?
Typically, we like to think about 3 days. That usually gets you through some wide-scale disaster.
And what about businesses? Now, I know that one of the regional organizations, Valley Vision, is doing an initiative on business resiliency, where they're trying to connect up businesses. And their point is that while we think about the human condition that Gary addresses through the Red Cross, at the same time, that a large-scale natural disaster, like a flood that you were referencing early, could literally decimate our economy because people can't get back open. And that affects grocery stores not being able to sell food, or people not having access to basic services, including government services and things like that. Where are we at on the preparedness scale, in your estimation, in being ready to bounce back and get back on our feet in the case of a disaster here locally?
Well, you know, each one of the individual businesses has information, and you know, I couldn't tell you each business's readiness, but I know I can speak for what the city is. The city's made a lot of moves when it looks at its infrastructure, and a lot of it has to do with your IT infrastructure, because information flow is what you really want, in setting up an EOC so that we have that emergency command center that we can operate and really coordinate with agencies such as Red Cross in that. And we've done a lot to make sure things are taken out of the floodplain, that they're pre-positioned ahead of time before the crisis. And so I think we're really solid there. I think that you know, the training that we do on a regular basis, and we do that outreach to the community also every year, is going well. But some of it also is the problematic part for us is that it's tough sometimes to motivate people to want to get involved because they're not dealing with the crisis. You know, from a law enforcement point of view, we see that on a regular basis when it comes to crime prevention, which is kind of like preparedness. It's tough to get people to want to use those techniques that you have, which are a lot of times are common sense, because there's no crisis, there's no urgency, and people are busy. And so you get a little bit of apathy with that. So it's important that people take that little bit of time ahead of time when nothing's going on and really just spend, you know, an hour just to do the little things that'll pay huge if we have a bad event.
Is there any technology that's available right now that, apps, systems, things like that, that we should all at least be taking a look at?
Actually, if I could, as you're talking about businesses and technology that's available, the preparedness of businesses, large corporations always have their emergency plans, right? Multi-page things that deal with anything that could happen. But the smaller businesses are the ones that are really at risk because they don't do those types of plans. Like the chief was saying, there's small things you can do. And we have a product at the Red Cross called Ready Rating, where someone for free that runs a business, owns a business, can go on the web and figure out exactly what their readiness standards are.
Really?
They have templates built so that you can design your plans, your exit strategies and stuff. And it's just an easy to use free service that we provide.
It's good to know. Good to know.
Right, and again, I think Red Cross has a great app. FEMA actually has produced a very simple app. You can get it on your Droid phone or your iPhone. It's free, like I said, and it has a wealth of information on the checklist, things you need to do, making sure you have a plan with your family. But then it has a list of all the disasters you could be faced with, right? From volcanoes to hurricanes to earthquakes to you name it, the fires. And it gives you what you should do ahead of time, what you should do during, and what you should do after. And it's a great bit of information. It's really simplistic, and it's easy to follow. The checklist that it has, spells out the kit that Gary referred to before. You could also build your own, and it kind of tells you everything you need. And it's little things. So it's like having candles or something along those lines, or something that you can have in case the power goes out for a long period of time. That's where it's really going to come into it. Having a flashlight. A lot of people don't think about it until the power goes out, and then they look around trying to find batteries and all those different type of things to make it work. But those are the type of things that are listed in there.
One thing that always is top of mind is how to get a hold of our loved ones. And as a first responder, can you give us all some advice on how do we get to our kids at school? How do we get to our parents that may be, not all that mobile in their homes or in some facility or something like that? What should families be doing so that way they can find a way to reconnect with each other?
Right. A lot of it goes back down to the communication. And you can have a variety of issues that impact your community, small scale, large scale. But your schools, they all have a service that they push out information, and you have to make sure that you have, just like I said with the city, that you've opted into that you've signed up for it, so that you get those notifications. Because if for some reason they have to close the school early, you want to know where you're going to pick up your kid. Or if there's a crisis, you want to know where the latest update is to say, wasn't my school, I know it was in my neighborhood, but did it occur at the school where my kid's at? So it's important that you opt into that. Going back to the city of Sacramento, same thing. If you have something, you need to get that information. We're pushing that information out as fast as we can. But if you're not connected, then you're not going to know. And that's where people start to panic.
And it's a full opt-in, I would say, as well, because I look at my daughter when she's in school. If an event comes up, there are things that happen from time to time. They're not big emergencies, but in opting in, you want to get every phone number, every email address that you have listed there, so that no matter where you are and what you're doing, you will get that message, because it takes nothing for them to repeatedly send it out.
So what potential disasters, keep you up at night? In terms of that, if we were facing something under your jurisdiction, what's the one that would be the biggest puzzler to you?
Well, that's a tough one. In the wintertime, I'm always concerned about flooding, just because Sacramento is, that's the #1 threat when we have to that. But I always look for the violent crime. That's just the nature of what we do, and making sure that, that we're able to mitigate it ahead of time, that we've done as much as we can to inform people on some of the preparation. An example of that is, as you know, on the East Coast, or I think it was a national event where one of the churches on the East Coast was, someone came in there and shot it up. You know, we've gone out to the faith-based community and done a lot of training for them on things they should be, you know, aware of, and then what they should do if something like that were to happen. And there's a whole video out there.
What should people do? Is there kind of a rule of thumb on that?
Yeah, Houston Police Department actually produced a great video, and it's called Run, Hide, Fight. And so when an event like that happens, and I'll throw it out there, it's right up there with getting struck by lightning. So it's not like it's prevalent and right on the first thing on our mind, but if it were to happen, it listed out there the things you should do. First thing is try to get out of the building and get away from wherever the violence is. The second thing is if those avenues are blocked out, try to hide and secure yourself in a place that someone can't get you. And thirdly, if the person's coming in and engaging, fight. Because that's your best chance of surviving the event.
Run, hide, fight. That is good advice. At the same time, what happens on the human scale if you're in a place where it is that you're cut off, power's out, you know, cars aren't moving because of some sort of natural disaster or something like that, and we haven't necessarily pre-planned and bought one of your kits. Any advice on what we should do?
I think one thing that's helpful is that the Red Cross does work with other community resources, whether it's the county, the city, police, and their plans ahead of time. We have people, volunteers that are scattered around the region, and we have resources for taking in people for shelter around the region ready so that within 4 hours we can have a place for someone to go.
I wanted to ask you, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions most of us have about the ability of organizations like yours and actually law enforcement to respond to emergencies that sort of we take for granted are going to be there?
Yeah, so the biggest misconception is one that I had, which was my first day at work here at the Red Cross. I had to respond to the Butte fires. And I thought it was all about the Red Cross, that we were out there doing everything by ourselves and we took care of everyone. But the misconception is that really we work with all of these other agencies. We plan ahead of time and we're all working in conjunction with each other. And by doing that, we're able to serve the people best, I think.
What about you?
I think he hit it right on the head. You know, we're all just a cog, and you can't solve it by yourself. And so when you look at our region, one thing that's great about our region is we have a lot of interoperability. So our radio systems are all in the same one, and we can communicate in need of if we have that crisis. And we work together, we meet together, and there's a lot of stuff that's done of making sure that we have things coordinated. And a lot of people don't realize that. You know, they just want to make sure that you respond. They expect you to be perfect when you do. And one of the things that we do on a regular basis is making sure that we keep those lines of communication open, that we do outreach, and that we coordinate and we talk about these things on a regular basis.
It sounds like actually things have gotten better, because I remember in the reports after 9/11, one of the criticisms that was made by the oversight bodies that were looking at that terrorist attack was that there were 14 different radio systems, and first responders of different types couldn't communicate with each other and all that. It sounds like that there has been progress made.
There has, and I guess we can thank our forefathers who started the radio systems and some of the interoperability that we have here in Sacramento. That we were well ahead of the game compared to where you look at a lot of the East Coast agencies or even some of the Southern California agencies where they all went independent. And so that's one of the beauties of this particular area, is that we're well coordinated, we communicate, and we all get along.
All right. So if direct contact with a loved one isn't available and our cell phones aren't working, what's your advice for how to reach out and get in contact?
Well, let me just kind of lay it out that in an earthquake, that's where normally the hard lines don't work, because a lot of phones get knocked off there, and you only have so many lines that are open for that one. But if it's a flood, your hard lines are still going to work. So you could use that one. If you don't have that one, you would try your cell. But if it's overtaxed, one thing that a lot of people don't know is you can actually text. A text will go better than a phone call.
Really?
Yes. So a lot of people don't realize that it goes on a different data way, as opposed to like a phone takes up a larger bandwidth, but you can actually get a text message out when you can't get a phone call out. So that's what we recommend. But if you can't do anything along those lines, you would try to look at other social media. You know, are you posting on Facebook? Are you putting out tweets?
Social media.
Absolutely. A lot of people use that to just say, hey, just so you know, I'm okay. But let's just say all that's not there. Then you would try to, you know, already have in your kit or your plan, what is our locations that we're going to have. One kind of in the immediate area that you would have your rally point. And then you would look, is that area compromised? If so, what was the secondary location from that that's a little further out? And you would try to go there. If you can't communicate, you can't drive, well, then it's a little bit more difficult. So then at that point, you're going to have to you're going to have to be patient and wait till you can get some form of communication or some way of transporting out. But the minute you can put any information out, it's really important, because that's normally where people kind of lose it a little bit. They get really concerned.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's good for folks to know is that if you have someone who is a loved one that is in an area that's been struck by an earthquake or some other disaster, and they may be in a shelter and you don't know how to contact them that way, there is a service called Safe and Well, where anyone that is in a shelter automatically registers with Safe and Well, and then people from the outside can call in and find out the status of their loved one.
Is there a place that like the Red Cross, that offers training for folks who are interested in getting a bit more organized?
Absolutely. Yeah, so there's training, there's online training that we offer. There's also training academies. One thing that we will traditionally do after a large-scale emergency is have something called disaster institutes. And in those institutes, we'll bring people in to help understand better how you can be prepared, what steps need to be taken, and such.
Is there a different kit or a different set of things that are needed if we're in a more rural area, say up in El Dorado County,
Yes.
or up in Placer County, than say in the city itself?
Right. Yeah, depending on your needs, like the chief said earlier, if you're in a flood zone or if you're in a fire zone, whatever your likely need is, that's how you should tailor your kit. And the resources that we have at redcross.org, as well as in the FEMA app, will be able to just really walk you through specifically what the various options might be.
Let's go back to where you started, talking about small disasters.
Yes.
You talked about things like smoke detectors and things like that. In your experience at the Red Cross, what are some of the little things that we tend to overlook that we should be prepared for? Not on the major scale of a flood or a fire or something like that, but the little more.
Yeah, well, it's funny, you
mundane
asked the
things.
question earlier about what keeps the chief up at night. What keeps us up at night, literally, are these fires that happen in the middle of the night. You hardly go through a night in our region where we're not responding to someone who's had a home fire and taking care of them. And the little things that people miss are things like they'll have a smoke alarm in their home, and we all have them, the electric ones that are already wired into the house. They have little batteries in them, and when the battery starts to die, it starts beeping. And what should you do? You should replace the battery. What do people often do? They disconnect the smoke alarm. So now they're unprotected. And we found a great incidence of that during our home fire preparedness campaign that we're doing now, where we've been going house to house, asking people about the fire alarms that they have, or smoke alarms that they have, and replacing them, replacing batteries, just all of those simple things, really simple things.
And were you surprised by the number of people
Absolutely.
whose detectors were not working?
Absolutely. In a one-day canvassing period, we're in 2 small neighborhoods in the Sacramento area. We found 600 smoke alarms that needed to be replaced.
600?
Yes,
That's a startling number.
yes. Our goal for the year is to replace 2,500 smoke alarms throughout this community, and we're making our way through that because the need is out there. What you find is that the sad thing about it is the place where you find the lowest prevalence of smoke alarms are the places where you're seeing the most fires too. So you end up just really having sad situations occur. What helped us get that 600? There was a lot of awareness when we did that campaign, because that was the week where in 2 instances people actually died in home fires in Sacramento back in December.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
You know, and something on that with the replacement, a lot of people wait for the beep and then, you know, then it's like, when am I going to go buy these batteries? It's actually, if you just set it up with like one event a year, I don't care if it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter or 4th of July, that you spend that day to replace all your batteries ahead of time and just institute that as your regular way of doing it, that's the best way to do it.
What
and
we
that way you're
recommend-
not thinking, yeah.
Yeah, we recommend that you do it at daylight savings time when it goes back and forth. So you do it twice a year, you know you're covered.
It really sounds like it's not a bunch of big things, but if we all just do some little things, we will all be much safer and better prepared the next time disaster strikes.
Right. And it's, you know, I'll tell you that shows like this, you know, put on by ALF, I think is very important because it has the ability to broaden the message out there that we're touching more people, and maybe just getting that next person to sign up or download one of these apps so that they're going to take those affirmative steps to be better prepared.
And we'll leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you both very much.
Thank
and
you.
good luck
Thank
in
you.
your work.
Thank you.
All right.
And that's our show. Thanks to our guests and thanks to you for watching Studio Sacramento. See you next time right here on KVIE.
At Five Star Bank, we create thoughtful solutions to help the Capital Region thrive, from economic development and education to public health and safety, issues that are vitally important to Sacramento's prosperity. We're proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.
All episodes of Studio Sacramento, along with other KVIE programs, are available to watch online at kvie.org/video.